we have a lot of meetings, but not where I was specifically living at that time. And it's like, the members of the other fellowship and AA, they were very open to addicts coming to their meetings. They were open to us identifying as alcoholics and addicts because they were like, we know there's only 7 meetings here for you guys. So I got in with the AA people, and it's just like, even though I started out with alcohol when I was really young, it still wasn't the same. I was still missing some type of connection with people, and our NA fellowship up there was just wasn't there. You go to each meeting one a week, one a day, and it's the same 15 people. And we're talking about in like a populated town. It's Manassas, Virginia. It's not like we're in Podunk somewhere. We had a lot of people there, but we didn't have the fellowship. And again, we didn't have the recovery community. Like, we see each other at meetings, we go out to dinner every once in a while, but like, as far as having a whole community to lean on, it wasn't there. So when I got a suggestion before I relapsed in 2019 to move down here, my mentor said, I think you need to move to Richmond and go to McShin Foundation. I said, I'm not moving to Richmond because I used to get high down there. She's like, but you've been getting high here for the past 5 years. You've been getting high in Northern Virginia for the past 18. The hell's the difference? So I tried something different when I got arrested. Like, I relapsed on a Friday. By the following Saturday, I was back in jail serving another year with a new charge, a brand new violation on 6 charges. And my lawyer walked in, and she looks at me. She like full look of disgust. She's seen all my other cases. She's seen what I was involved in. Seen that I had a child while I was still incarcerated. And that I had contact with that child. Apparently that was a no-no with her. And it's like, she's like, well, I guess you want me to get you a bond. And for the first time, I was at a point where I knew that if I got a bond and was lit back out that week, I was going to die. Like, when you are getting arrested and the police officer looks at your ID and goes, I recognize your name. I was like, I'm sure you do. It's like, I'm surprised you didn't see my face. And he was just like, well, you know what's going to happen. I was like, let's go ahead to jail. Been up for a whole week. I was like, here, go get an evidence bag. I will give you the drugs. Like, I will give you every last bag I have on me. Gave him everything that I had because I was walking to work. I was attempting to walk to work. I was in such a psychosis, like I was going whole slam the wrong way. And so he pulls out, he goes, gets an evidence bag, and I just dump my purse out and like just start weeding through the stuff in my purse. I was like, here, take this. He's like, is that everything? And I'm looking down at the ground. I'm like, yeah. He's like, go ahead, put all your stuff back in your bag. So I do. I stand back up and I go to turn around. I was like, oh, we got to go back to that hotel. He's like, why? I was like, well, I got more in there. And he's like, you're just like legitimately giving me all your drugs. I'm like, look, I've been through this before. I've been arrested outside of the hotel. And then 9 months later, you guys indict me on a new charge for what's in the hotel. Let's just get it all done. So you go back to the hotel, give him everything I have there. He's like, what is it? And at that time, like, I don't know exactly what was in the bags by that point because it was just such a mixture of everything, but I knew what it was mostly of, and I was like, it's this. He's like, okay. So when I get to jail and I wake up the next, well, first of all, this CO that's working the intake desk, she looks at me and she's like, Rushbrook, what happened? Like, when I walked out of that jail 6 months prior to this, I was happy. I had a glow about me. Like, I was full of life because I thought I had fixed everything in those jail programs and I was ready to go. Had a sponsor, had my meetings lined up, had my IOP lined up. And when I came back, and it was only 4 months, I'd lost like 15 pounds in that week. I was so broken and my face was so sunk in. Like she literally had this look of sadness on her face. And she's like, what happened? It's like I got told no for something I wanted to do and I couldn't handle it. She looked at me, she said, what are you talking about? She was with me when I had my daughter in the hospital, and you know, I hope that I was the one that helped change her view on inmates, because she used to treat us other than until she spent the night with me in the hospital and we really talked, and she's like, holy shit, you're a whole person. And when I told her I got told no, I couldn't go to my daughter's first birthday party, she just shook her head and she's like, I'd probably go back out too. So I go in, they put me in isolation because I'm in a psychosis. And when I finally come out of it a couple of days later after sleeping, like, I look at my charges, and instead of having a stack of charges for all this shit that I gave him, I had one possession charge and one charge for public intoxicity, something like that. There you go, public intoxication. And I was thankful. I was like, man, this man knew what I had against me. Like, I went back to jail with 22 years over my head already, still on probation, because I couldn't stop getting high, you know? So back to the lawyer. When I told her I didn't want to bond, that I was going to die, she's like, so what do you want to do? I was like, I want to sit here because obviously I missed something. And I went back through and I told her I wanted to come down to the McShin program. She's like, well, I guess I got to do all the legwork for that. I said, no. I was like, I've already talked to behavioral health. They said they would help me. I've already talked to my mentor. She said she would help me. And, I kind of started on my way. I looked at life a different way while I was incarcerated that time. Like, I stopped saying, I know. Because I finally learned that when I said I know, I stopped being teachable. Because I don't know jack, right? And so those words kind of they were gone from my vocabulary. I say them occasionally today, but it's because those are the times when I'm hearing something that I don't want to hear. I just want to shut that person up. I'm like, I know. But really what I learned was that phrase, I know, is when you stop being willing and stop being teachable. So I became willing and teachable, and I started to get honest with some deep-rooted problems I had and deep-rooted traumas I had. And it's like I didn't even realize that some of these things still affected me until, like, I started talking to my counselor at the jail, started going to behavioral health on a more regular basis, got honest about some of my medications, because I finally told the doctor, I was like, I'm tired of being happy all the time. Screw these meds. I was like, I couldn't even get high while I was on them. I never got high. I was just awake that whole week. It kind of sucked because I kept taking my mental health meds. I was like, well, at least I'm doing this right. No. So, I used that time in jail to, get reset on my meds, change some things up. And I finally was more level-headed than I'd been in probably my whole life. I accepted my mental health diagnosis. I accepted the fact that I could never drink or use drugs successfully again, because apparently I'm allergic, break out in handcuffs every gosh darn time. And so I go through a faith-based program again, learn some stuff. They're like, well, this is the same stuff we taught you last time we were here. I was like, well, I wasn't teachable. Tried it a different way. And then I went back through our drug dorm again. It's not a McShin program, but it's run by the CSB, and it was actually a really good drug program for what we had available up there. Like, the other jail was in and out of. I couldn't go to any of the programs because I had to keep separate. Snitches. They didn't want to do their whole time, so they were like, nope, she did this, she did that. But it's all right. I've forgiven that person. But I finally I stopped dwelling on the surface level stuff. I stopped playing a victim. Like, the only things that I talked about and I dealt with the previous time I was in jail was, how I was the victim, how this person did this to me, how this person did this to me. Now, I had some pretty jacked up crap done to me. Like, don't get it twisted. I was put in some very precarious situations. I was put in a lot of dangerous situations, but at the end of the day, it's because I put myself there. I'm the one that caused me to get abducted. I'm the one that caused me to get my ass beat by the guys that abducted me because I couldn't stop getting high and I didn't want help at that time. So it's like I lost that victim mentality altogether. And it's like they said last night at the church service that we went to, I became victorious. I was no longer a victim and I was taking charge of my life again. And I wasn't willing to have or let anybody control how I felt. I was not letting the drugs do it anymore. I wasn't going to let my old resentments do it anymore. I wasn't going to let my hate do it anymore. There's sometimes I still get resentful. Don't get it twisted. But those long-term resentments I was willing to talk about with my sponsor again. She started working with me again. I was surprised. And, they started going away. I started my step work again while I was in jail. Then COVID hit. Sponsor couldn't come back into the jail no more. NA wasn't able to come into the jail. Like we were the last jail to shut down in Virginia. But that was probably the hardest 3 months because it was at the end of my jail sentence that I could have done. Because I had no programming to do. I had nothing to use to get myself outside my head. I was stuck with myself for literally 3 months, trying to watch TV, but still had my mind going. And all those little voices, they talk some good shit. It's like when I went to sentencing in 2020, I thought, I was going to be doing about 2 years for this one possession charge because that's where my guidelines were. And I thought for sure I was doing at least an additional 3 years for this violation. But because I did some footwork and tried to do something different, like the behavioral health lady, I'll love her. She found me funding to move down here. She found me a ride to get down here. And it covered my whole intensive program plus 2 months of sober living. And I didn't get the bottom tier. That jail dished out some money with their grant. And when I went for sentencing, the first judge, I'd never been in front of her before. And my lawyer had worked out a deal to where they were driving the public intoxication. I only got found guilty of the possession, and they only gave me a year. I was shocked. The judge went below the guidelines. The prosecutor wanted me to do 2 years. Judge was like, she's redone all this. She's trying something different. She's moving out of the area. Something is different. So I got sentenced to 1 year and 28-day program coming down here. I only had 3 weeks of that year left to serve. So then the next day I go in front of my other judge for my violation. He looks at me and I'm like, oh, I'm screwed. Forget moving. Forget doing anything. I'm stuck. And he's like, Miss Rushberg, what did I tell you the last time I saw you? I said, you better not see me again. And he was like, and it's been, I think it had been almost a year exactly since the last time I was in front of him when he sentenced me the year prior to the 15 months. Because I never got in trouble before I was 28 years old. I got away with a lot of shit. And I just started, just the tears start rolling down my face. I set all this stuff up to do something different. I was like, he's going to stop me. Watch. And he starts, reading my PSI. He starts reading everything. makes a whole show of it. And he's like, I'm going to give you 90 days, but you must complete that 28-day program or else you're coming back for 3 years. I said, got a deal. So I did my 90 days and left that jail July 11th, 2020, came straight down here, no stops, like came straight down here. Forgot my meds, like was super manic by the time I got down here. Joyce couldn't stand me. Like she loved me, but at that point I was so nervous and I hadn't been around a lot of people and it was on the weekend and I was here at the church and there's all these men and I'm like, ugh. What am I supposed to do? She's like, what do you mean? It's like, I haven't been around men in over a year. I haven't been around this many people quite a while. I was like, and I didn't take my meds this morning. They're sitting at the jail. She's like, what do you mean they're sitting at the jail? I was like, I was so excited to leave. Got them. It was a hard few days. Didn't sleep for like 3 or 4 days. Felt like I was high on life, like having epiphanies, 5 o'clock in the morning. Drove my house leader crazy. But like, you know, I moved into a house with my assistant house leader was someone I'd known for a few years and did some time with. And then at Sober Living, there's a couple other girls I'd done some time with. They tried something different and moved down here, you know. And I started getting some hope again. And then like I've been here for like a month. Fucking John Shinholzer. I want you to meet Chelsea. I'm like, who are you introducing me to now? I was being introduced to Miss America. Didn't know it. I knew she was around, but like I was off doing other stuff. And he was like, this is my next rising star. And I looked at him. I'm like, I ain't shit. I'm a whole shit bag. Like I hadn't had confidence in myself in so long. And I was like, I'm nobody's next rising star. But he kept saying it and he kept saying it and he kept saying it. Like each time he'd either see me or introduce me to somebody. And it's like it planted a seed that maybe I can do something. So I ended up running what was then Chesterfield House, now Brenna House, for 5 or 6 months and then moved into Sober Living and got my contract with AmeriCorps. 9-time convicted felon, right? Working for the city of Richmond because that's who our AmeriCorps goes through. I never thought I'd be on another federal contract again in my life. Like I used to work for the Department of Defense. Fuck that up. Used to be in the Army. Fuck that up. Now here I am on another federal contract, right? Took a few extra fingerprints and a little extra red tape and paperwork, but they let me work for them. So I was here, Sober Living, like doing my thing. July 14th of last year, I moved out and moved in with somebody that was using. Thought it was a great idea because I was over living here and yeah, so that worked out so great. A month after I moved out, my roommate was in a car accident and killed somebody while he was high. His mama called me. The first person I called was John Shinholzer because I didn't know who else to call. Like, here's a person I've been friends with since I moved down here. He's sitting in jail having to have surgery, and he done killed somebody. John was like, well, what are you doing right now? I was like, I'm leaving work and going to the church. She's like, all right. So I came up here. I talked to my women's director at the time. Like, I was pretty messed up over it. Like, and we were kind of romantically involved, whatever. And like, but I hadn't had somebody snatched out of my life like that yet. And it's like, I thought it just, you know, I felt like my reaction was like, if he actually died. I found out shortly after that how that felt. Clean. That shit sucked. But so you know, and then I go to a meeting, and that night my old house leader from Hilliard calls me and she's like, baby, I'm so sorry. I was like, I'm on my way to the house. It's 10 o'clock at night. I'm on my way to Hilliard. I ain't lived there in a month. But my girls were still there. My herd was still there. And it's like every time something goes bad, I come back to the herd. Granted, I work here, but like I still come back. Because this is where I learned connection. This is where I learned that having people in my corner, I didn't have to do shit by myself no more. So I've been so used to being on my own, taking care of things by myself, and that was that. Nobody else had my back. But the staff here taught me differently. The staff here taught me that never alone, never again. I mean, and they taught me that too, but I didn't quite get it until I started living in a community where everyone's fucking clean. Then a few months later, my grandpa gets sick. Again. Like, damn, I never dealt with grief well. Always used. So this time I had a heads up that he was going to die, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, they're giving him till January. Here we are in November, October, November. How am I supposed to deal with these feelings for months? John was like, will you talk about it? Dumbass. I was like, okay. So I start talking about it in meetings, and, I got support. Because the last time I lost a grandparent, balls to the wall, got kicked out of the Army because of it. It's a legit reason. And but I had support here. I had support in the rooms. And it gave me the opportunity to learn how to have a healthy grieving process without the use of drugs and alcohol. So, like, when the time came and he passed away, like, I get a phone call from my dad, Grandpa Martin passed away, and I'm like, okay. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, I've been talking about it for months at this point. And it was 3 days before Christmas. And all I could think about was how he how he looked the year before when I saw him when I first got out of jail, right? He just turned 92 years old. He could still remember me. He didn't realize it had been like 6 years since he'd seen me, and I've been in and out of jail. So, like, when I saw him on his birthday, I realized I was losing him, at least mentally. Like, he was still here, but he wasn't here. So I didn't know at the time, but I'd started the grieving process then and the letting go. But he got to see me clean. My grandma never got to see me clean. My other grandpa never got to see me clean. He was the first grandparent to pass away that saw me clean. And it meant a lot. He might have been my stepmom's dad, but like that was my fucking grandpa because he'd been around since I was 4 years old, and I was the only grandchild he's had contact with for the past 20 years. Like, I was his baby. Ugh. Crying's okay and it's healthy. But again, I came back. I talked about it. I didn't pen it up anymore because I learned finally that all that pain, getting stuff deep down inside, caused me to use because I didn't know how to get rid of it. But once I started talking, once I got a sponsor, once I got involved with something that was bigger than myself, got a higher power. And for a long time, this was my higher power, this room, right? Our community meetings, because I hadn't felt part of in so long. I thought the Army was going to make me feel part of. It did for a little bit, and then that was ripped away because of my actions. When I started going to jail, I was involved with a bike club. I thought that was going to make me feel part of. Again, it did a little bit, but still didn't fill that void. So it's like my void's finally filled. I have my family down here. I have my blood family, but you guys understand. And this is what keeps me alive today. Daggone it. Since I moved down here, I've made a lot of friends and I've lost a lot of friends, and it sucks. You know, my friend, we were in intensive together. She just passed away a couple weeks, well, I guess about 2 months ago in an overdose. She was 23 years old. Had her whole life ahead of her. And that one fucking hurt. Thanks, Jim. That one hurt a lot because she had her whole life like ahead of her, and like she kept reaching out and we kept reaching back to bring her back. She wasn't ready. You know. So it's like when you have people that go back out, I understand it gets hard to keep up with them because when they stop texting you back, they stop calling you back, it sucks. But it's like you still have to read. Well, for me, I feel guilty if I don't reach back out. It might only be like once a month because I can't chase every person that decides to walk back out these doors. But you know, at least they know that somebody still cares. All right. With that, I'm done. Like, but okay, so, but at the end of the day, the rooms at NA and McShin and like a lot of freaking work have gotten me to where I celebrate 3 years clean on November 17th of this year. You know, I couldn't put 3 days clean for a really long time, let alone 3 hours clean. And the only time I got 3 hours clean was when my boyfriend would take my drugs while I was searching for more. And this has been like the biggest feat that I've done. I'm back in school full time. I'm working here full time. I have a relationship with my almost 13-year-old, getting back involved with my 4-year-old's life. And, you know, I'm working in a field that I actually feel I have a purpose in, and I love it. Like, I love seeing the lights come on in y'all's eyes when you get it. It's the most beautiful thing, but it's like having found my purpose when I've been searching for a long time. I'm not going to say how long. You know, it's a fucking miracle. Still here for some reason. No matter how many times I try to freaking die, it's not meant to be. And had it not been for EMT, like I would have been successful. But like I finally realized that maybe I was here for a bigger reason. I can't believe I'm back in school. I can't believe I'm making the dean's list. You know, I've never been a good student, but I'm a good student now. It's freaking weird. I'm involved at VCU's collegiate recovery, and I get to enjoy the college experience for once because I'm going on a damn spring break. So I had my son when I was 22, and never got to enjoy that whole college thing. Well, I do now. It's really nice. Like, I have money to do fun shit like this. I have money to go to conventions whenever I want. I have a car that's pretty freaking reliable. Made it to Ocean City and back. Made it to Tennessee and back. Made it to North Carolina and back. I'm not tempting to take it over a mountain, though. It might not make it. But it still gets me from A to B. It might be 20 years old. It might be a piece of shit, but I love that piece of shit, you know? But for real, if it wasn't for McShin and what they've built here, introducing me to a different way to live and how to do things better and be better and believe in myself, I wouldn't still be standing here. I'd be right back down in Petersburg doing what I want to do. So with that, thanks for letting me share. So for the alumni that are watching out there, I need y'all to start reaching out. I will be reaching out to you. I do have a really cool speaker for next month, and I have a speaker for January. We're booking this a little further out now. It's going to be the first Sunday of every month. So get back involved, get back connected. With that, thank y'all.